Have you ever felt the silent paralysis of watching the world rush by while your own feet seem stuck to the ground? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the scene. Everyone around you is participating in a frantic race, moving at a speed that seems natural to them. They celebrate quick victories, accumulate achievements before the age of 30, build homes and careers with an ease that is almost frightening. And there you are, standing on the edge of this great human highway, watching the intense flow without being able to take a single step at the same cadence. Society whispers and often shouts that you are falling behind, that you are slow, indecisive, or that you have simply failed to understand the elementary rules of the game. This feeling of inadequacy and displacement corrodes the soul during sleepless nights. But what if everything they told you about time, pace, and success is a great illusion? What if your disconnect from the world isn't a flaw to be corrected, but the purest sign of a rare, profound inner structure destined for a purpose far greater than mere social survival? We live in a world that idolizes straight lines and blind speed. The script for success demanded of us is relentless. You must prove your worth in youth, accumulate material power soon after, and, upon reaching maturity, display unwavering stability. Those who don't follow this rigorous playbook are quickly discarded or treated as an anomaly. You, at some point, tried to follow this path. You wore the clothes they told you to, smiled at the appropriate moments, and tried to force your heart to desire the same superficial things that others seem to desire with such passion. However, with each step taken in that direction, an inexplicable emptiness grew in your chest. The feeling was never one of moving forward, but of walking backward, losing your own identity with each small concession made to please the world. Why is it so painful to try to be normal? Why does what brings comfort and security to most people bring only anguish and suffocation to you? Carl Jung, one of the greatest observers of the mysteries of the human soul, dedicated his life to deciphering these very agonies. He did not see the human mind as a machine for producing results or accumulating wealth, but as a vast universe governed by cosmic, symbolic, and spiritual laws. For Jung, its slowness in the face of the world is not a cosmic error. On the contrary, it is the manifestation of a nature that is not allowed to flourish early. Think of the nature around you. Smaller herbs grow quickly, dominate the soil in a few days, and survive anyway, but are just as easily carried away by the first strong wind. Centennial trees, on the other hand, those that withstand the most violent storms, and whose roots break rocks beneath the earth, take years just to show their first sprout above the ground. If your soul were to flourish too early, if you were to find the quick and easy success that the world offers to those who conform without questioning, you would be lost forever. You would become a prisoner of a shallow life, disconnected from your true essence. Your journey wasn't designed by the stars for speed. It was designed for depth. Jung understood that human existence imitates the perfect and inevitable movement of the sun in the sky. There is the morning of life, and there is the afternoon of life, and each of these phases obeys completely different laws. Imagine youth as the exact moment of dawn. People begin to climb the great mountain of life carrying very light backpacks. Their beings are still being formed. They run uphill driven by an instinctive energy, propelled by the burning desire to be recognized, applauded, and accepted by the tribe. In this morning climb, what we call a social mask is built. It is a temporary tent, hastily erected, just to ensure that the person survives under the judgmental gaze of society, and the world strongly applauds this haste. Society awards prizes to the young person who sacrifices their peace for a job, smiles approvingly at the one who builds a family before even knowing who they really are, and enthusiastically validates anyone who simply does not question the gears of the system. The equation offered seems very simple. Just fit in, lower your head, stifle your own doubts, and march to the same rhythm as the crowd. But what happens when a profound soul is forced to participate in this morning march? For rare individuals, guided by an inner compass of intuition and a spiritual hunger that refuses material crumbs, the first half of life is a silent and often devastating battlefield. You feel like an actor thrust onto the main stage, under blinding lights, in the middle of a play whose script you've never read, and in which you definitely don't want to participate. Every movement seems mechanical and false. Every word spoken merely to please others carries sharp points that wound your own throat. while others view the construction of this social persona as a natural, safe, and even pleasurable process. You feel you are wearing armor that is too tight, crushing your bones, distorting your vision, and sucking all the air from your lungs. The morning of life, for you, is not a time of glorious achievements, but a time of constant friction, of cold war between what the world demands you to be and what your sacred essence yearns to be. How many times have you abruptly changed direction? How many environments, relationships, or projects have you abandoned because suddenly the air became unbreathable and the absence of real meaning became an unbearable weight? The world looks at these changes and quickly labels you as unstable. People around you whisper that you will never be satisfied, that you are afraid to make real commitments, or that you immaturely run away from adult responsibilities. And in the solitude of your own room, listening to the silence of the night, you have often believed these harsh accusations. You have cruelly punished yourself for not being able to maintain the routine that everyone envied, for not being able to feign interest in empty Sunday conversations, for not being able to treat the relentless pursuit of money and status as the ultimate purpose of your existence. You felt flawed, weak, and broken. But is the true weakness in refusing a life devoid of meaning? Or is it in those who accept living an absolute lie just to avoid facing the terror of being alone? The great revelation that Jung's contemplative thought offers us, like a balm for old wounds, is that your continuous stumbles, your chronic fatigue, and your apparent inability to adapt are not symptoms of existential failure. In fact, they are sublime defense mechanisms. Your own spirit has actively sabotaged your attempts to fit into a small life. Every door that slammed shut, every plan that crumbled to ashes when you tried to force your way through the common path, was a direct intervention of the invisible to protect your true identity. If you had achieved glory quickly, if you had found absolute comfort within that tight social armor, you would have been frozen inside for eternity. You would have spent the rest of your days believing you were just that hollow mask, smiling a smile that doesn't belong to you. You would have missed the sacred chance to discover the vast universe of symbols, powers, and truths that lies dormant within you. Your suffering in the first half of life was not a punishment. It was the high price life demanded to keep your soul intact and ready for what truly matters. However, time does not stop, and the march of existence cannot be interrupted. The exhausting climb of the morning eventually reaches its natural limit. You have fought against the current for decades, feeling the silent terror of losing every opportunity while time seemed to slip like sand through your tired hands. But there is an exact moment in the human journey, a turning point imperceptible to most, when the light definitively changes direction. A mystical instant when the rules of the earthly game are suddenly reversed, and the sun, having reached its zenith, begins its slow, golden, and majestic descent to the west. Everything that seemed a terrible disadvantage is about to transmute into your greatest power. Everything that hurt you, delayed you, and made you bleed served only as purification and preparation for a monumental rite of passage. What exactly happens to the body, the mind, and the soul when the urgency of the morning ends and the silent call of life's afternoon finally echoes on the horizon? Imagine the scene. You're sitting in a brightly lit room, perhaps in front of your computer's cold screen on a random afternoon, or in the middle of a group of acquaintances, and suddenly, a silent chill runs down your spine. Your calendar is full of appointments, your goals are set, the people around you smile and chat about trivialities, weekend plans, recent purchases, or the next step on the corporate ladder. Everyone seems perfectly comfortable in their own skin and perfectly attuned to the frequency of that environment. You, however, look at all of that and feel breathless. A terrifying and lonely question echoes in the back of your mind. What exactly am I doing here? The laughter that escapes your lips sounds artificial even to your own ears. You nod, make the expected comments, but inside, you feel as if you're operating the mechanical controls of a heavy, lifeless suit. This profound disconnection, this feeling of being a ghost observing the world of the living from behind opaque glass, is not a sign of ingratitude for the life you have. In Carl Jung's contemplative view, this profound exhaustion is the precise moment when your soul refuses to continue signing a contract it never wanted to enter into. Society functions like a vast store of ready-made, standardized uniforms. From a very young age, the world demands that you enter this store and choose a defined way to exist. There's the uniform of the successful and unwavering professional, the attire of the always helpful and kind person, the armor of the strong individual who never shows weakness. If you wear one of these outfits and mold yourself to it, external life becomes incredibly easier. The world recognizes your clothing, applauds your predictable behavior, and rewards you with salaries, social invitations, and a false sense of security. Jung gave this attire the name persona, the absolutely necessary social mask for the individual to navigate the human marketplace without being devoured. But he left a warning that most people prefer to ignore throughout their lives. The mask is merely an illusory agreement, a middle ground between what you really are and what society expects you to appear to be. The great mystery, and the root of all their silent suffering, is that rare temperaments lack the superficial flexibility necessary to survive on illusory agreements. Their spiritual structure was not forged by the stars to live in uniformity. It was molded for absolute truth and the non-negotiable freedom of being. When society demands that you adapt, it's not just asking you to change the way you speak or to wear appropriate work clothes. The invisible and overwhelming pressure of the world requires you to mutilate your own rhythm, stifle your intuition, and abandon your unique way of perceiving the sacred and the profane. For most people, putting on this daily mask is as simple and painless as putting on a coat before going out in the cold. For you, however, wearing the persona is the equivalent of putting someone else's lungs in your own chest and trying to breathe. The air simply doesn't get in. And that's exactly why the first half of your earthly journey seemed like an endless sequence of obstacles, failures, and frustrations. Not because you lack intelligence, talent, or willpower. On the contrary, you have repeatedly failed to fit in because your spirit is too strong to live for long within a lie. Your soul perceives the falsity of human transactions. We all deeply desire love and acceptance, but rare souls possess a painful lucidity. They know that if they are loved for an edited, polished, and false version of themselves, what they receive is not true love. It is merely a commercial transaction of affections. And this crystal clear clarity, while an immense spiritual gift, is also the source of their greatest loneliness. You may recall entire nights spent awake, tossing and turning in bed, your body exhausted and your mind spinning in an endless cycle of self-reproach. You wondered why you couldn't simply be happy with what you had, why you couldn't treat a promotion at work as the ultimate goal of existence, why you couldn't ignore the cruel gears of the social game. The truth you hadn't yet grasped is that the unconscious doesn't communicate through logical words or rational advice. When the life you lead doesn't correspond to the sacred geometry of your soul, the unconscious reacts through undeniable physical and emotional symptoms. That chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep can cure, the seemingly unmotivated irritability that burns your chest, the prolonged apathy that makes the world seem gray and tasteless, or even the deep depression that paralyzes you. None of this is weakness. In Jung's esoteric and symbolic language, these pains are fire alarms. It is your life force rebelling against the prison of superficiality. Your body transforms into a perfect oracle, physically rejecting the falsehood that your mind tried to accept for fear of being left behind. The mystery deepens when we realize that the souls who walk on this frequency carry an inner density far greater than their chronological age. While your peers lived on fleeting impulses, competing for attention on social media or at bar tables, you were already secretly asking age-old questions about death, about the hidden truth of things, and about the invisible meaning of human suffering. You saw the fragility of power, the falsity of polished reputations, and the darkness that dwells in the hearts of men very early on. Having this X-ray vision prevents you from being naive, and it's impossible to enthusiastically participate in a frantic race when you've already read the secret code of the game and know that the finish line leads nowhere. But the external pressure is voracious. The fear of missing the train of life emerges like a dark tide, pushing you to try once again, to put on the mask to keep up with the pace of others. And that's where the most dangerous and unexpected turn in your journey occurs. The more you force your own nature to fit into the mold of others, the more your world crumbles. You enter a cycle of trying to fit in, losing your own essence, collapsing completely, bitterly blaming yourself, and trying it all again with even less strength. If you've ever found yourself trapped in this invisible labyrinth, know that this exhausting repetition doesn't prove you're a failure. It definitively proves that you weren't born to crawl on the surface. You need to stop fighting against your own depth. But what happens when exhaustion wins? The mask finally cracks from end to end. and the great illusion crumbles before your open eyes. Where does the energy of a lifetime go when it stops trying to please the outside world and turns, with full force, towards the abyss of one's own being? There is a hidden threshold in the great human journey, an invisible frontier not marked by earthly calendars, but by the relentless clock of the spirit. After spending decades walking with the painful feeling of being out of sync, struggling to wear emotional clothes that tore at your skin, you finally approach a mysterious milestone. Carl Jung, with his alchemist's vision of the soul, called this sacred moment Metanoia. Don't confuse this passage with the cliches of a midlife crisis, where people desperately seek to recapture lost youth through possessions or impulsive escapes. Metanoia is a silent earthquake, a profound and irreversible reversal of your entire psychological and spiritual system. It usually happens when the dust of your 40s or 50s begins to settle, acting as a tidal shift in the depths of your being. You simply realize you no longer have even a drop of energy to beg for the world's approval. The fuel that once fed your need to belong evaporates completely. When the sun reaches its zenith in the sky and begins its majestic descent to the west, the laws governing the universe are reversed. That which helped people run fast during the morning of life drastically loses its power. It is precisely at this point that those who achieved early success, building empires based purely on the expectations of others, collapse. They realize with indescribable terror that they climbed the highest possible ladder, only to discover that it was leaning against the wrong wall. The mask that protected them has become an iron prison, and the self they carry no longer belongs to them. Meanwhile, you, the rare soul who stumbled, bled, and wandered through the fog for half your life because of your fundamental difference, enter this same phase feeling a strange and welcoming familiarity. What was once your greatest burden transforms into pure gold. You already know darkness and uncertainty, and you are not frightened when old structures tremble, because your castle was never built on the illusions of the outside world. The movement of your life force radically changes direction. The energy that was once thrown outward in a desperate attempt to construct an acceptable social identity now retreats and turns towards the magnetic center of your being. The universe stops demanding your mechanical performance and begins to require your absolute truth. But what happens when the social mirror, which dictated your every move until now, suddenly shatters into 1,000 pieces and you realize that the only image that matters is the one without a face? Are you prepared to endure the deafening silence that accompanies the definitive death of that character you pretended to be in order to survive? And what if true freedom demands that you disappoint, once and for all those who loved only your chained version? The signs of this great transformation don't initially appear as logical thoughts, but as unavoidable, visceral reactions. Your own body transforms into a relentless lie detector. During your youth, you could swallow discomfort, force a smile, and participate in empty conversations to maintain the harmony of the environment. Now, these same social interactions provoke immediate physical exhaustion, almost like a severe allergic reaction. Your organism begins to reject falsehood. If you try to force a choice based on convenience or fear, accepting a job that violates your values, or maintaining a relationship that drains your light, your soul responds instantly. It sends insomnia, palpitations, or a dense sadness that has no clear medical cause. Many people will say you're losing your sparkle or becoming bitter, but don't accept this mediocre diagnosis. In esoteric language, this physical repulsion is the most sacred sign of healing. The psyche is cutting the supply lines of the mask and redirecting every spark of energy to the forging of your true identity. This withdrawal process demands rigorous internal isolation, much like the alchemy that occurs within the cocoon before the butterfly emerges. You become drawn into a magnetic and devouring question: who am I after all? If they take away my job, my family role, and the pathological need to be loved. The subtle difference between you and the masses at this stage is the profound feeling that accompanies this question. For ordinary people, losing these definitions is equivalent to death. They cling to what they have built. For you, for the first time in your life, a real breeze of hope arises. The absence of definitions does not bring the panic of the end, but the indescribable emotion of an authentic beginning. You feel in the roots of your spirit the cosmic permission to build an existence that matches the sacred geometry of your innermost desires. The surface of your life may seem chaotic to an outside observer, but inside, the planets of your particular solar system are finally aligning. Many profound souls describe this precise crossing as a no man's land. The old way of existing has been burned in the fire of disillusionment, but the new form still lacks the arms and legs to walk robustly in the real world. It's like the darkest moment before sunrise. How do you survive crossing this invisible desert, where the old land has already disappeared from sight on the horizon, but the new continent is still nothing more than an unreachable mirage in the fog? If your life force categorically refuses to feed the old illusion, who is this new and mysterious entity that is violently struggling to be born through your most painful scars? Would you have the immense patience to sit in the dark and wait for it to speak its true name, even if the world outside demands that you run? It is precisely in this gray area, in this suspended space between worlds, that the person of rare temperament discovers their supreme advantage in life. If you have spent the last 30 or 40 years dealing daily with the abyss of doubt and the chronic pain of not belonging, chaos has ceased to be your terrifying enemy. You have been trained in the hidden arts of emotional survival. When the old structures of financial security or collective beliefs tremble violently, shallow minds panic absolutely, because they have never learned to float in the void. You, on the contrary, realize that the electric fear that arises is not a cosmic alarm screaming for you to retreat into the crowd. It is the shining sign indicating that you are finally breaking the tight frame that imprisoned your soul. With each step into the unknown, your intuition, previously muffled by external noise, becomes a clear voice. Dusk does not mean your time is running out. It means that the intense, blinding light of midday has softened enough to reveal the hidden treasures in your own path. When you cross this portal of transformation, life itself changes its primary purpose, and the old rules are discarded. You cease to be measured by the scale of material accumulation and begin to be evaluated by the precision scale of your vibrational authenticity. The universe no longer cares how fast you can run. It cares how deep you can dive without closing your eyes. Metanoia reveals that all the waiting, all the apparent delays, and all the irreparable losses were not divine punishment. They were simply the incubation time necessary for your inner resin to transform into solid and precious amber. Rare souls were never designed to explode in youth like fireworks, which shine intensely for a second and leave only gray smoke in the air. They were designed to burn like eternal embers, and every sacred ember needs a long and silent time beneath the ash before revealing its supreme and inexhaustible heat. You finally stopped chasing after life, planted your feet firmly on the ground, and now life begins to flow towards you, inevitably drawn by the gravity of your own naked truth. The spectacular irony of this whole process is that you've probably waited for this moment your whole life without realizing it, believing you were seeking traditional success, when, in fact, you were seeking the peace of absolute congruence. The ship of your existence has finally pointed its bow towards the open ocean, and the winds are blowing in your favor, but the main engine hasn't yet been started. Where will the colossal and wild strength needed to build this new inner empire come from, if your energy seems to have been drained to the last drop by the solitary battles fought during your youth? Would you have the audacity to descend, holding only a small torch in your hands, into the darkest and dampest basements of your own mind, to unleash and reclaim the raw, dark, and forbidden power that you yourself have chained for decades, just to be accepted by society? What exactly awaits you, breathing in the darkness of your own shadows, eager to break the locks and explosively merge with your light? If you have the courage to descend the damp, dark stairs of your own mind, carrying only the small torch of your conscience, you will find a heavy iron door locked for decades. Behind this door dwell not the cruel monsters that society has taught you to fear, but rather the purest, wildest, and most formidable source of energy that the universe has ever placed in your hands. Carl Jung called this vast hidden cellar the shadow. For mystical and contemplative thought, the shadow is not absolute evil, but the sacred repository of all your unrefined power, of all your life force that has been rejected by the outside world. During the first half of your existence, you expended a colossal amount of energy not to live, but to keep this iron door firmly closed. You were trained from childhood to believe that, to be worthy of love, acceptance, and belonging, you needed to eradicate from yourself any trace of ferocity, any excessive ambition, and any desire that challenged the established order. You learned to smile when you wanted to scream, to give way when you should have advanced, and to swallow your natural fury to be labeled a good and easygoing person. However, purity does not reside in weakness. Being harmless because your claws were torn out doesn't make you a morally superior being. It only makes you docile prey, an incomplete fragment of a spirit born to be whole. And the price of keeping half your vitality locked in the basement is the profound exhaustion that has haunted your days. You've spent your whole life trying to speed up your boat while keeping the anchor heavily dropped to the bottom of the ocean. There is a fascinating and highly improbable phenomenon that occurs in the oldest and most majestic forests on our planet. A curiosity of nature that perfectly mirrors what is about to happen in your soul. Some species of ancient pines and sequoias produce cones that are completely sealed by a thick, stone-hard resin. These seeds can fall to the forest floor and remain there, dormant and seemingly dead for decades. They do not sprout with rainwater or the gentle warmth of spring. For the life imprisoned there to be released, a catastrophic event is necessary, a devastating forest fire. Only the extreme and lethal heat of the flames is capable of melting the impenetrable resin, forcing the seed to open and unleash its creative force into the ashes of the old world. What untrained eyes see as absolute destruction, and the end of everything is, in fact, the only biological mechanism capable of initiating rebirth. Your psychological structure operates under exactly this same alchemical law. The overwhelming crises that begin to emerge around the age of 50, the extreme exhaustion of your persona, the collapse of your old beliefs, the sudden emptiness that burns in your chest, or the sacred fire sweeping through your inner forest. This fire did not come to destroy you. It came to melt the hardened resin of your social fear and release the seed of your darkest and most vital power, the one that lay dormant on the cold ground of your psyche, waiting for the exact moment to erupt. When that fire reaches the basement door and the lock finally melts, the shadow emerges not as a destructive force, but as a titanic ally that comes to rescue the sovereignty of your life. The first energy you recover from the ashes is healthy aggression. The language of the spirit. Aggression has nothing to do with blind violence or cruelty. It is the divine force of imposing insurmountable boundaries. For a long time, you lived like a tree from which the world pruned all the sharp branches so that people could lean on you without getting hurt. The result was that you became an excessively available being, vulnerable to emotional abuse, and drained by relationships that sapped your lifeblood. But by integrating the strength of your shadow, your sharp branches grow again. You discover the majestic beauty and profound relief of saying a definitive no, without feeling the slightest need to offer lengthy explanations or apologize for your unavailability. The chronic fear of not being liked simply evaporates, replaced by an unwavering self-respect. All the vital energy you wasted trying to keep others comfortable and avoiding conflict suddenly returns to your own center, filling your sails with a powerful wind you haven't felt since your youth. Simultaneously, the second great force escaping from the basement is your true ambition, but now transformed by the relentless filter of pain and time. When young, many people express their ambition impulsively, desperate for applause and trophies to validate their existence in the eyes of others. It is a chaotic energy that burns quickly and often destroys the individual. However, after years of apparent failures, silent falls, and friction with reality, the ambition of the shadow undergoes brutal compression. It is the exact geological process that transforms black, brittle coal into an indestructible diamond under the crushing weight of mountains. The ambition that awakens in you in the second half of life is cold, calculated, lucid, and absolutely unstoppable. You no longer wish to reach the top to prove something to society or to rub your success in the faces of those who doubted you. You now move by an imperative of destiny. There is a work to be done, a truth to be manifested, a space in the world that belongs uniquely to your spiritual frequency. And precisely because your ego is no longer begging for external validation, it becomes infinitely easier to perform audacious actions. You gain the uncommon courage to persist in what is lonely and difficult, operating at 100% of your driving capacity, because the invisible handbrake that held your soul back has finally been deactivated. At this stage of somber enlightenment, your walk gains a firmness that intimidates superficial minds. You walk through the world carrying the light of your consciousness and the weight of your shadow, walking side by side in perfect harmony. It is the mystical union of opposites, the alchemical marriage between heaven and earth within your own chest. But once you are in full possession of this overwhelming force, and no longer allow yourself to be paralyzed by the judgment of others, a new mystery arises on the horizon of your perception. How will you use this raw energy to decipher the great enigma of your past? What happens when this new, clear vision, forged in the fire of resilience, begins to sweep away all the broken pieces, the detours, the abandoned jobs, and the old passions that you believe to be merely useless mistakes scattered across the ground of your history? Will you be prepared for the shock of discovering that an invisible and much greater intelligence has been secretly stitching together each of your apparent failures, preparing the ground to reveal the true masterpiece of your existence? When the smoke from the inner fire finally dissipates, and the wild force of your shadow merges with the golden light of your consciousness, your eyes open to a truth that is both terrifying and incredibly beautiful. Pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and look back at the vast ruins of your own past. For decades, you have carried the crushing weight of believing that your story was an immense graveyard of failed attempts. The jobs you abandoned abruptly because the air became unbreathable, the university courses you left unfinished, feeling an emptiness in your stomach, the relationships that crumbled against your will, the business ventures that didn't survive the first major storm. Society, with its narrow, materialistic, and purely linear vision, convinced you that this fragmented trajectory was the ultimate proof of your inconsistency. You were rigidly taught to feel a deep shame for being an eternal wanderer, a pilgrim without a destination, someone seemingly incapable of choosing a single road and marching blindfolded along it until the end of life. However, as you cross this new threshold of spiritual maturity, the contemplative thought of Carl Jung whispers a monumental secret in your ear. The unconscious is a masterful weaver that never works in straight lines. It operates in sacred spirals, orchestrating invisible events through the law of synchronicity. And it is precisely now that the alchemical miracle of synthesis happens abruptly. What you considered to be just a pile of disconnected rubble scattered across the floor of your life begins to levitate, moved by an inexplicable magnetic force, and each broken piece fits perfectly in the air to form a dazzling mosaic. You discover, with a chilling shiver down your spine, that you were never lost. A superior, hidden, and silent intelligence has been guiding each of your apparent deviations, causing you to gather highly specific ingredients on different banks of dark rivers, secretly preparing you to undergo a transmutation that can only happen in the sacred afternoon of life. The great tragedy of those who chose a single safe path in their youth and never dared to venture beyond its boundaries is that they become absolute masters of only one small cog in the world, remaining painfully blind to the workings of the entire cosmic clock. If the morning of life demands frantic specialization, the afternoon of life gifts rare souls with the supreme intelligence of total connection. We live in a civilization on the brink of a nervous breakdown, drowning in a shallow ocean of information, dominated by voracious algorithms and artificial intelligences that spew mountains of data in fractions of a second. Today's young prodigies, equipped with quick minds and brilliant degrees, race frantically to solve the problems of the modern world. But there is an inevitable moment of tension that always occurs. A glitch in the matrix of early success. When these young people encounter a true, profound, and multifaceted human crisis, the structural breakdown of a large organization, the emotional ruin of a family, or the silent spiritual depression of a community, they enter a state of paralyzing panic. They freeze in terror because they desperately search for a simple logical answer, a perfect mathematical equation, or a shortcut button that simply doesn't exist in the realm of the soul. Real life, in its brutal complexity, doesn't fit into spreadsheets or productivity charts, and it is precisely in this scenario of despair and collective fragmentation that you, the eternal wanderer of human experiences, emerge as a silent giant. You enter the epicenter of absolute chaos and feel a strange, powerful, and almost mystical calm. You don't panic simply because you have already inhabited chaos for most of your days. And it is in this moment of global tension that your greatest superpower finally reveals itself to the world. The sovereign ability to see the great invisible web that connects absolutely all things that exist. Your mind, meticulously honed by years of wandering, doubt, and suffering, no longer sees daily events as mere geographical accidents or strokes of luck. You develop a systemic and archetypal vision bordering on clairvoyance. You perceive with crystal clarity that the person who studied art in the past and then went into sales learned to read the human soul through secret forms, understanding the hidden fear behind a simple commercial rejection. You realize that the individual who grew up in a dysfunctional home, full of open wounds and unspoken secrets, and who later assumed leadership of a large corporate team, can see the exact same unhealthy family dynamic operating silently in the boardroom. Nothing in your story was wasted. Everything is a living, interconnected organism. While ordinary eyes see only superficial behaviors and cheap emotional reactions, you, guided by the contemplative Jungian essence, begin to see the great symbols and ancient gods walking disguised through the concrete streets of your city. You perfectly see the archetype of the cowardly tyrant in that controlling boss who is terrified of his own powerlessness in the face of life. You see the classic figure of the orphan in the adult who compulsively buys material goods to fill an infinite existential void. You see the mortally wounded hero in the one who frantically tries to save others, because he has never, in his entire life, been saved by anyone. You read material reality, not through the ephemeral headlines of newspapers, but through the eternal and profound currents of the collective unconscious. And by mastering this primordial language, you become impenetrable and immune to the cheap manipulations of the modern world. No one can deceive or mislead you with illusory promises anymore, because you have come to see the source code of human intentions. This spectacular capacity for spiritual synthesis creates a monumental turning point in your earthly destiny. You abruptly cease to be the person begging for a small space in the world and become the living compass the world desperately needs to consult when the lights go out. The rough, heavy stones you carried in your pockets throughout your journey of invisible suffering were not useless burdens. They were the exact, fundamental building blocks needed to erect a majestic bridge over the abyss of the unknown. A rare bridge connecting reason and spirituality, personal pain and collective healing, dense matter and invisible essence. By understanding, once and for all, the mathematical and poetic perfection of all your previous failures, an unwavering, ancestral, and utterly silent confidence takes hold of every cell of your physical body. It is not the artificial, fragile, and foolish optimism of those who have never had their hearts broken by life, but the unbreakable and terrifying faith of one who has descended into the hell of their own shadows, mapped the territory of the flames, and returned to the surface absolutely whole. However, carrying a vision of such colossal proportions within one's mind is by no means a task for fragile or unresolved spirits. Becoming an unwavering beacon of lucidity amidst a global storm of ignorance, anxiety, and fear immediately attracts hungry gazes, overwhelming responsibilities, and unimaginable energetic pressures. When those around you perceive the depth of your newfound vision, they will rush to try and lean on your shoulders. And it is precisely here that a new, unpredictable, and dangerous abyss opens wide beneath your feet. How will you manage to sustain the monumental weight of this newfound wisdom, without your own emotional and physical structure collapsing under the demands of the world? What is the secret armor, forged in absolute silence during the darkest and coldest nights of your journey, that will allow you to remain standing, breathing calmly, when the ground beneath everyone else's feet begins to violently and irreversibly give way? The secret armor that allows you to bear the colossal weight of this new vision was not forged under the applause of the crowd or in the bright light of easy victories, but in the deafening silence of your darkest and loneliest nights. Carl Jung deeply understood that the true strength of the human spirit is never born of ease. Those who walked a straight and unobstructed path during their youth, who achieved perfect jobs and stable relationships without any friction with reality, grew much like plants cultivated inside a glass greenhouse. They have green leaves, appear imposing and healthy under artificial light, but their roots are tragically shallow. When the first great storm of existence breaks the glass of the greenhouse, they are torn from the soil and shattered by the wind, for they never learned to withstand the fury of the unknown. You, on the contrary, were forced to be born and grow in the desert. Your silent resilience is your greatest masterpiece. You've fallen and risen so many times, without absolutely anyone watching, that starting over from scratch has ceased to be a source of hidden shame and has become your sharpest survival skill. You've seen your plans crumble, tasted the bitter taste of rejection, watched your bank account and vital energy reach their absolute limit. And, precisely because you lost everything at some point and survived to tell the tale, the fear of losing control no longer has the power to paralyze you. While the world around you goes into chronic panic at any uncertainty, running from one side to the other in search of false guarantees, you manage to remain standing, motionless, and breathing with an ancestral calm, because you know perfectly well how to rebuild an empire from the ashes. However, possessing this monumental vision and unbreakable strength will not be enough if you do not immediately learn to protect the sacred fire that burns within you. The great danger that rare souls face in the twilight of life is no longer a lack of ability, but the invisible and constant leakage of their vital energy. People with your level of depth and empathy have a dangerous tendency to leave all the doors of their own temple wide open. Your natural compassion makes you want to heal the pain of everyone who crosses your path, carry the burdens of those who refuse to walk, and listen to the laments of those who use you as an emotional dumping ground. But pay close attention to this alchemical truth. If you continue to indiscriminately pour your light into bottomless wells, when the exact moment arrives to illuminate your own great work, you will have absolutely nothing to offer but darkness and extreme exhaustion. The practical application of this entire spiritual journey begins the moment you understand that protecting your energy is not an act of cruel selfishness, but the highest form of soul hygiene. You need to transform personal boundaries into the non-negotiable foundation of your daily routine. From today onward, your calendar should no longer dictate the rhythm of your strength. It is your strength that should relentlessly dictate your calendar. Observe your own body after each social interaction, after each message read, or each meeting finished. If a person or environment leaves you short of breath, with a feeling of heaviness in your shoulders, or with your mind clouded by unreal doubts, this is a clear physiological sign that your temple has been invaded. Trust this alarm completely and walk away. The path to practical liberation requires the definitive abandonment of the childish need to be loved and understood by everyone. There is a subtle and devastating trap disguised as kindness, which makes you believe you owe lengthy explanations whenever you need to refuse a request. But understand that every time you elaborate on a long speech to justify why you can't help someone, or why you won't attend an event, you are secretly asking permission to exist. You are tying your peace of mind to the other person's emotions. A mature spirit masters the art of saying a simple, polite, and firm no, understanding that this word concludes the sentence on its own. You owe no one your convenience. You have no obligation to shrink or emotionally mutilate yourself to ensure that other people remain in their comfort zones. When you begin to apply this new posture in the real world, many people around you will be deeply bothered. They will try to make you feel guilty, accuse you of having changed for the worse, or apply the silent punishment of indifference. Let them go. The discomfort of others is the mandatory toll you must pay to cross the bridge of maturity. Those who truly respect your essence will celebrate your new boundaries. Those who only took advantage of your boundless energy will disappear like smoke, and that will be the greatest spiritual cleansing you have ever experienced in your entire life. Look at your own hands. Look at the long, winding, and magnificent road that has brought you to this very moment. All that agonizing feeling of inadequacy, that terrible suspicion that you were permanently late to the race of life, was merely an optical illusion created by a world that has completely lost touch with the wisdom of natural time. Superficial lives are built on speed, but immortal lives are fermented by depth. You belong to the second category. Your soul needed decades of silent gestation, of shocks against reality, and of plunges into the abysses of the unconscious to develop the antidote that today's ailing world so desperately seeks. Therefore, release, once and for all, the heavy guilt you carry for not having reached the false social goals at the moment society demanded them. There is absolutely nothing to be compensated for, and no time was truly lost. You are not late for your destiny. You arrived punctually at the exact moment when your soul finally possesses the necessary strength not to be crushed by its own light. Your only duty now is not to convince the world that you were right all along, but simply to live with such authenticity, such courage, and such wholeness that you never again need to apologize to yourself for existing. The door that has been locked for almost half your life is now wide open, and the warm, welcoming light of dusk invites you to take the most important step of your journey. If these words touch that hidden, protected place within your heart, if you finally recognized your own journey reflected in this mirror and felt the weight of decades falling from your shoulders, don't let this moment of revelation pass you by. I invite you, with all due reverence for your history, to leave your mark here. Subscribe to this channel so we can continue exploring together the deepest territories of the human mind. Leave a like so this message reaches other rare souls who still walk lost in the fog, believing they are alone. And above all, go to the comments right now and share your voice. You don't need to tell your whole life story. Just write a short sentence about the part of yourself you've kept locked away the longest, or how you feel realizing you were never late. Even if you prefer to use an anonymous name or veiled words, the simple physical act of writing and throwing this statement into the world is the first powerful move to reclaim your true identity. The afternoon of your life has just begun, and it promises to be incredibly brighter and more powerful than any morning you ever dared to dream of.